Dan's not gonna be here?
Just come down and get sworn in by the mayor.
I didn't hear that he wasn't going to be here.
I think the mayor gets sworn in before.
If he took for granted it's a seller.
First.
Well, maybe he just can't get here for this, and it's not like he has to be. No biggie.
On the first. When did you get sworn in?
Tonight.
Oh, I thought you did it.
No, just kind of like everybody, just we did that when, on the first
Ron is
time,
not here either?
when we went from Dave Coons to me. But I went from one to another. I mean, just it's re-election, and I didn't get, no, we're gonna get sworn in tonight.
You have to swear in your
Gary,
staff,
Dan
too.
isn't coming?
No.
Okay, because I know when I did Summit
Gary.
County,
sorry.
we always
No,
all
Dan?
had to do the
I have
oath
not
of
heard
office.
I haven't heard from him, I just
They
texted
do that
him.
in cities.
Texted him.
No.
None of his staff
Camera
wants
right
to be
there.
sworn.
No, I just,
No, but no.
no, I just wonder because
I
Summit County
don't
always
have
did.
an email.
No.
And if
I'll
we
check
did,
my
we had to
phone.
go to his office and get sworn in, you know, everyone had to be sworn in.
Yeah,
Just say you
left the
probably,
office today.
I don't know.
yeah, I don't.
I know, I was just
We've
curious.
never, yeah, I don't know that we've ever done that,
Okay.
you know, here at the city, so.
How many people left?
Robert said he'd refuse.
Yeah, no.
I don't think you have a choice.
He asked me if after I get.
That's
sworn
what we
in,
were just saying.
my staff in. That's okay. County, that's basically, that's where you got it. Has to get sworn in.
Board of Elections.
We don't do that.
This is the Board of Elections today. They wanted me to be a precinct committee member. Had to be a write-in.
Working.
I didn't do the petition. I needed 5 votes. I did 5. I forgot about it.
We'll give it
I didn't have enough.
5 minutes because we still have to all be sworn in,
Because no one's gonna run for
and then
committee member.
we'll go from there.
I just gotta write my name in
Have
when I
cook-
vote.
punch and cookies.
We'll see what he says.
Oh, he's
You
leaving.
wasted my
He's
signature.
leaving his
Yeah,
shop
I know
now.
what I had one
We'll
more
give him a couple
signature, and
minutes.
I gave it to Jason.
Right
the
around
day
the
before.
corner, so I don't know.
I just forgot to get the last signature. A write-in.
Not to judge.
And what do you need? Attorney.
Just one. I just got it for myself when I go down. No one's gonna know that.
Just for a minute.
All right.
I just had,
Quick question.
Jason sent me a piece of paper to sign, and I had to run it down the Board of Elections today. Oh, powwow. Big powwow. Do we really want Scott Peel out or not?
Hell no. Vote him out.
Should we hold up his swearing in or not?
Vote him off.
No problem.
I guess we'll have one more year. Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay, why not?
Yeah, these guys think we're talking about me. We're actually just talking.
No, Mr. Coran this evening?
He's on his way.
Just leaving the shop there, so I'll be right down.
Fortunately, it's right there.
Yeah.
Those deer are out playing in the middle of the road again.
There is that.
Must say, I was very surprised.
Out here?
Right over there.
Oh, over there?
Yeah, right coming this way.
Oh, my
and they
goodness.
was over there playing basketball.
Jeez.
I'll do each one, and then I'll sign all of them. Just so it doesn't look like we're going to a table or something.
Might just tell him we're giving it a couple.
We have Mr. Karen's on his way from his shop, which is right around the corner here, so we're going to give him just a couple minutes.
asked that the other day.
Wait for the age to roll off.
I always worried about that too when I was over there.
Roll off at her.
Oh, yeah, he said the.
When I was here, Rick Rogers here, I tried to push him off a couple times, but he yelled back. Good old Rick.
I know that.
He caused a lot of headaches.
Like you did. Unfortunately, it doesn't grow back.
I don't know, but if I'll check and see, because if she does, we're going to get started. Yeah.
Until he's nominated.
Oh, not at all. No, I'm
I think we're gonna sing Hail, Hail, the gang's all here when Dan shows up.
I'll walk out of the door.
You want me to send him?
Meeting adjourned.
And then
Have a meeting.
okay. Okay.
I thought I was gonna be late. I saw that 6:30. I'm like, shit.
I know, I know.
So I left work like a half an hour early. It's that damn scar thing.
Like I said, I had to double check too, because I texted Carrie, I'm like, what time is it? Yeah. 'Cause I looked at everything except the time.
Yeah, did it work?
It's like I started thinking about that last
Nothing.
night. It's like, well, shit, you never
Yeah,
I'm like a whole one.
just rebooted.
Right.
Started it.
I always say reboot.
What was wrong with me? I know
Yeah,
that about it.
yeah, reboot.
All you do is turn it
Yeah,
back on. Come right on.
I've done that a couple of times. I was acting up, I rebooted and then, I should have told you that.
I never even thought of it.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there watching TV.
Yeah.
I looked over at it and said, I haven't had it all from back on.
Introduce
Whereas
Judge.
I know I'm not contagious, but I could be coughing my lungs out any minute.
You guys want to stand there?
Yeah, we'll come down there.
Those days.
Okay, ready?
This is the original, these are the originals
Yes.
for signature.
Yes.
After you swear, and if you want to come over to this table and sign, and then
Okay.
I'll sign all of them after you all
Okay.
sign.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the Norton City Council organizational meeting to order. Today's Monday, January 6th, the year 2020. It is 6:38 p.m. If we rise for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated.
Thank you. We would like to thank the Honorable Judge Jill Flagg Lansinger for being here this evening to conduct our swearing-in ceremony. We're going to do that just in front here, and then we will do our roll call and proceed with the agenda. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Just gonna Mayor,
Just up a little bit.
is it easier to do over there? Okay.
Face the camera, I don't think it might go. Or you can be on this side of me.
There we go.
We should probably.
Bible and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Mike Zeta,
I, Mike Zeta,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the charter of the city of Norton,
the charter of the city of Norton,
Summit and Wayne counties,
Summit and Wayne counties,
Ohio,
Ohio,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
my duties as mayor of the city of Norton, Ohio,
my duties as mayor of the city of Norton, Ohio,
during my continuance in said position.
during my continuance in said position.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
You're up, buddy.
Joe, you want me to hold your hand?
Sir, if you could raise your right hand. Please repeat after me. I, Joseph Kernan,
I, Joseph Kernan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the charter of the city of Norton,
the charter of the city of Norton,
Summit and Wayne counties, Ohio,
Summit and Wayne counties, Ohio,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially discharge my duties
and impartially discharge my duties
as a council member of the city of Norton, Ohio,
as a council member of the city of Norton, Ohio,
during my continuance in said position.
during my continuance in said position.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Oh, Bible's over here.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Scott Pilot,
I, Scott Pilot,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the charter of the city of Norton,
the charter of the city of Norton,
Summit and Wayne counties, Ohio,
Summit and Wayne counties, Ohio,
and that I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially discharge
and partially discharge
my duties as a council member of the city of Norton,
my duties as a council member of the city of Norton,
Ohio,
Ohio,
during my continuance in said position.
during my continuance in said position.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Charlotte McKee.
Awesome, thank you.
Who's gonna be next?
You have memorized. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Charlotte Whitby,
I, Charlotte Whitman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution
to uphold the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the laws of the state of Ohio,
the charter of the city of Norton,
the charter of the city of Norton,
Summit and Wayne counties, Ohio,
Summit and Wayne counties, Ohio,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and discharge my duties as a council member of the City of Norton, Ohio, during my continuance in said position. So help me God. Congratulations.
Let's finish this up, and then we'll break, and then we'll. Yeah, I will. Judge, before we call roll and everything, just so you know, we're going to, after the organizational meeting, which shouldn't take too much longer, we're going to have some refreshments and you're welcome to stay around, and we would like for you to do so if you can. We also want to thank you for coming out this evening very much. Thank you.
For inviting me.
Carrie, if you want to call the roll.
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Carratt?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Here.
Mr. Pelot?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here.
I'd like to open the floor to nominate, for nominations for president of the council for 2020.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Kernan as president.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other further nominations? Then I'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
I would like to make just a quick statement. Joe, this isn't personal, but I think it's my duty. I cannot support Mr. Kernan. It's not a personal thing. Last year, we had so many council meetings canceled, and in the second half of the year, we had several where legislation was then brought up the next week to where we had to pass it as it was being introduced. And for me, as a representative of my ward, to me that comes across as a lack of professionalism as well as a lack of respect for the people we serve. And I think that reflects on not only everybody on council, but the administration. And this is not anything against Mr. Kernan, it's just so my residents know where I stand. So I will be voting no. Thank you.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
So at this point, I guess I will open nominations for the position of Vice President of Council. And I will nominate Mr. Pelot.
Second.
I have a motion and a second nominating Mr. Pelot for Vice President of Council. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
All right, so we have President and Vice President taken care of. I just wanted to let everyone know that, you know, as president, I think we made a lot of progress last year. A lot of good things happened in this city. It's been a long time coming. The citizens of this city deserve the good things that are happening, and I just want to let everyone know that I'm going to continue to work for those things, as I know all of the members of council and the administration will. And so having said that, is there a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting?
So moved.
There's a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned the organizational meeting. We're going to take about 10 minutes or so and have some refreshments over there, and then we will begin into our first committee work session for the evening, for the year.
Don't everybody break their leg to get to the cookies.
I know, right?
Sure, yes, definitely. Can you take our picture?
Yeah.
If I can have your attention just real quick, just so everyone knows, Between the two meetings, the tape is continuing to play and being broadcast. So I just want everybody to know that.
No.
Oh, okay. I like that, that's funny. Oh, it's so nice
Nice to meet
meeting
you
I'm
too.
going to put your copies in the mail
Great.
tomorrow.
Okay,
so
great,
you'll
thank
have
you,
it
thank you, I
file.
appreciate that. Where are you going to put my?
Over you.
Sure. Thanks, nice meeting you.
We met up here.
Oh, hi guys. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, nice to meet you. I was here maybe 2 weeks ago. That's probably right. Were you at your house?
I was.
Okay, yeah, no, that's when we met.
I think you talked to me.
That's right, that's right. Nice to see you again.
That's fun.
Hi, how are you? Good, John. Yes. Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Say goodbye, and thank you for letting me start in. I'm such an honor. Thank you.
Did you get your coat?
I gotta get it right now, or else when I get home, it's my car goes too fast.
You don't want me to have this taking. Right, right. Take a drop.
Well, cut in half, but I'm gonna go get it. I had to dig it my other half out. Well, thank you.
Are you being official?
Yeah, that's why I'm shaking her hand.
Congratulations.
Your hands are so little. Mine are too. What's funny?
Look at, did you see this?
So were you running behind?
This is great. Look at this. Great.
Oh, ooh.
I just cut this one. And now that one.
Yeah, there's always gonna be salt.
Are you done? Playing with the puppies.
Take care, my best friend. Oh, yeah.
You want me to keep this?
Actually,
Yeah. You don't need it.
no, take care. Bye. Thank you. See you later. Thank you again. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me do that. It's my honor. Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
debate whether I was gonna leave it on tonight or not.
Somebody writes out of town.
That's kind of the in fashion right now.
What'd you get? Where was I?
Yeah, now they haven't seen you in a year.
What's been there for a month?
Well, they were good, but you know, when you're jumping around adjustments versus jeans or.
Something different, something for a change.
So I went down really hard to do the tire and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oopsie. But yeah, I did, I got it.
Chokes me up too.
You got lots more to get through. And a lot of meat to go through. You know,
So I think at least for the first day, I should be good.
I think so too.
You know, I should follow.
And tonight. But nobody. And Carla's texted this morning. She's like, "Have you heard anything new?" And I said, "Actually, yes." Joe just texted me. So she said, "Oh."
There's too much for you, so do well I can.
I know, right?
What's that one? Oh, that is, I gotta get on that. That's not the.
That's exactly right. And I'm afraid that it's going wrong.
No problem. Alright, I think we're heading out.
I love it.
You too?
We will.
See you later, thanks.
We'll see you again.
So take care.
I talked to Larry House.
Hi. That's okay, you know.
Everything above.
I'm not sure what they're on either. There's two different kinds.
How are you, young man?
I think the other is just.
Great. Absolutely marvelous.
Was it white chocolate?
Now that I've had a cookie.
Wow.
Gotcha.
It's more worthwhile to do that.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I bet you do. Bring it on.
Right?
See? No
Well, I'm ready.
Which makes me only too happy to do it.
news, because they're all dieting.
Makes me only too happy to do it
Anyway, take one.
as well.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Well, I see Mr. Ron managed to make it now.
Why, there he is.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
In the line of fire once again.
I get two, I messed up.
Okay.
I had to do that during church.
No problem.
I know that feeling.
That's fine.
It was good weather for it, too.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody I know is having problems.
Yeah, it's because
So I'm staying away from it.
it's that damp, cool weather.
I
That's
think
what I
it was
think.
actually the baby that was sick that came to our house.
That
Well,
could-
that'll do it.
That'll do it too.
Holiday?
Yeah. Did you?
These killings, aren't they?
That'll do it.
That's why I don't go around them.
How's your leg?
It's coming along.
Good deal.
Even worse when they go to school.
Finally filling in.
That's my daughter. My
It's
daughter.
only taken 4 months, 4.5
Eh?
months.
At least it's doing it.
It's going the right way.
Shame, shame, shame. Holding up the show. Somebody would have made the agenda smaller.
Already, we're running. It's live still, right?
Correct.
All right. I call the Norton City Council Committee work session for Monday, January 6th, 2020 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Carrot?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Here.
Mr. Pelot?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here. Letter A, appoint standing committees. At this time, I feel the committees were pretty well suited last year, so I'm just going to continue the same committee assignments this year as we had last year. We'll just continue on with those. Letter B, approve the 2020 meeting schedule. That's Mr. McGlone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think as everyone looked over the meeting schedule, if there's any changes, feel free to say it right now. If not, we're going to approve the schedule that Carrie wrote up. Done?
And I've looked at this, and, I would just like to point out to everyone that the charter requires one meeting a month. That's what's required by the charter. So we actually, if we have 2 meetings in a month, we've doubled what's required in the charter, and 3 or 4 is even more. So I just wanted to point that out. I've looked at this meeting schedule, and it looks fine to me.
Okay, super. Okay, do we have to vote on it or not, or just?
I think
we just say.
a motion and a second, and then we'll vote on it.
Okay, we'll make a motion for the Norton City Council meeting scheduled for 2020.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve the attached 2020 meeting schedule. Further discussion? The clerk call the roll, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carrot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Letter C, review and approve council rules. Mr. McGlone.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a time that we always look over the council rules, and I'm pretty sure this is where, after tonight, we need 2/3 votes, correct, Mr. President?
Correct.
So this is the time, if anyone has any rule changes they'd like to say or change or add or delete, please say them now. Or we would just keep the same personal rules, and we can always go back to them during the year, but again, like Mr. Kernan just said, we'd need 2/3 vote to change them.
We were discussing before the meeting started this evening, always a little bit of confusion at the organizational meeting. Who starts the meeting? Who's, the president from the former year is not necessarily the president at the beginning of the meeting. So the council clerk will open the meetings, and what I was going to suggest is we put it into our rules where if the previous council president still holds his seat or her seat, then they go ahead, they open the meeting. If the former president isn't there, then it would default to the former vice president, and if neither one's there, then it would default to the council clerk to open the meeting. I just figured if we put it into the rules, then that way it would cut out any confusion for the future.
I think that's a good idea myself, because we're always sitting here, okay, who does what now? And that way there wouldn't be any question on it.
So earlier, I hadn't actually looked at the rules. We only do this one time a year.
Yeah.
It's actually what the rule says
already
is
there,
that
yeah.
it's
It's already in
already,
there?
it's already there. So
That way.
the presiding president of council should have done it. I mean, I think it's fine if the clerk of council does it.
Right.
But it's already in there, so.
Good.
So I think we're good there.
Cool.
Are there any other proposed rules changes?
Okay, with that, then, again, feel free to email me if there's something that concerns you during the year, and we'll talk about it at one of our committee meetings. So with that, I'd like to improve the council rules as they are written, and the same as last year.
Second.
The clerk call the roll, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carrot?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Letter D, appoint the Volunteer Firefighters Dependents Fund. Mr. McGlone, you again.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is every year we have to elect 2 council members. It's a pretty tough job during the year, but we always have to pick 2 people to do the dependent fund. I'll put myself in it as one, and anyone else would like to do it?
I'm good with staying on it. Makes no difference.
So we'll put me and Scott Pelot for the dependent fund. We only need 2, right, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll make a motion to have that done.
I'll second.
Motion is second to appoint Mr. McGlone and Mr. Pelot to the Volunteer Firefighters Dependents Fund. Any further discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carrot?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Letter E, land donation, properties and mines. That falls to me. This is, let me pull that back here. It's property that's being donated. Mr. Fowler, could you fill us in just a little bit or fill in the public?
Yes. So this property was one that we had sent the property owner a notice that his property was deficient of the city codified ordinances. Rather than take him to court, he suggested donating the property in lieu of going to court and us demolishing the property. Once we receive the property, we will demolish it and then do a side lot program with the neighbors as an option for them to make purchase.
Do what with it? I'm sorry.
So you would split it's actually 2 lots that you would leave, and you would offer them to the neighbors first for them to purchase. The immediate neighbor, and if the immediate neighbor would not be interested, you would offer it to the adjacent neighbor as a means for us to recollect all the money that we put into this property for demolition.
Do we have any idea about how much that might be?
A typical demolition is between $5,500 to $9,000, depending on if there's remediation. Fortunately, from what I've seen of the inside of the home, none of the walls have drywall, which would be a concern potentially, depending on the era of the drywall, for asbestos. But it seems to be without issue. But we'll have to have a survey done, and the survey will tell us whether or not remediation is necessary.
And that is ordinance number 1, 2020. Any discussion regarding that? We can let this go 3 readings?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I'll move to add ordinance number 1, 2020 to the next regular council agenda for its first reading.
I'll second.
Motion is second to add ordinance number 1, 2020 to the next agenda. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carrot?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
We were asking about if this should go through all council vote or just the 3 committee members, because it really is a committee work session.
Yeah, are you operating as a committee of the whole or in your separate committees for this purpose?
Committee work session, we generally operate as separate
Separate
committees.
committees,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but in taking the full role, you took the role of the
Committee.
3 committee members. And
Yep.
who was the first? I moved it, and who seconded it?
I did. So somebody else would have to second it.
All right, let's do that again.
Okay.
I'm going to move to add ordinance number 1, 2020 to the next regular council meeting agenda for its first reading.
I will second.
There's a motion and a second. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
I think what confused us was we were doing all the council stuff
The
ahead
council
of time.
matter stuff, right.
And so, yeah.
Right.
Did we have to remove first?
All right, letter F, hot box purchase. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, we're kind of revisiting an ordinance we'd done last year, number 127, 2019, where we had approved buying the hot box from the Southeastern Equipment for $29,195. And Mr. Fowler has found another vendor, Seal Master, that'll sell us the same hot box equipment for $27,988. So we're looking to amend the 127, 2019 in order to fit this, and I'm thinking we want to get this done as soon as possible, so we'll be looking to waive the second and third readings at the next council meeting and have emergency language. The only question that I have, do we need to repeal 127, or does it just go by the wayside, or?
It would amend it, so it stays in place, but we would amend it to substitute this purchase into that ordinance.
So we're still going to use it as ordinance number 2, though, 2020?
Yes, yeah. It would be 127 as amended by ordinance 2, 2020.
Okay. Any other questions? With that being said, I motion to add this to council's next agenda. As I said, we're looking to waive the second and third readings, and it will have emergency language.
I'll second that. There's a motion and a second to add ordinance number 2, 2020 to the next agenda for its first reading. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Letter G, OPWC grant, Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do we have a timeline on this?
It can go 3 reads. There's just one edit that we need to make to the cover of the
Okay.
legislation.
This is actually where we're going to be applying for some Ohio Public Works Commissions for several projects. I had a couple questions on this. We're told it's 3 improvements. The resolution says 3, but the exhibit seems to list 4.
It should be modified to reflect 4.
Okay.
That was the one of the edits that we had, so.
And the 2020 water line projects, the Johnson Road isn't actually added into the legislation, I don't believe. But my question is, last year when we were looking to have the design done and we approved that, we were going all the way to the fire station from Parkside. And this says just to Hametown Road. Did we shorten it, or?
Should say, actually, it should be Belton.
Okay, so that needs to be changed
Yes.
also. And this is going to include the Loyal Oak area as well? Those water lines?
I had not placed that in the legislation because we're working on something else with that for now.
So it's actually just going to be the Johnson Road one then?
Yes, because we added, if you noticed, we added a storm sewer replacement. We weren't, I know we've had discussion prior, but in some discussions with Barberton of some concerns we have in that area, and there's the head wall down in the old package plant. They felt, in our conversations, we felt this was a little higher priority, and we were coming up with another plan to fund Reimer.
And the Carl Street water line extension?
Correct.
Okay.
Reimer Carl, yeah.
So this is actually just for the Johnson Road?
Correct.
Thank you. the Greenwich Road sewer replacement or is that just where we're picking it up where we didn't get it done last year?
Yes, because it's already designed, and with the conflict in the roadway, ODOT didn't want us to bid it out, and the initial bid we received was about twice what we had budgeted. So we thought we should go get some funding to try to match our portion of that project.
And we've extended it now to include up to Gardner.
It always included it, but we were going to do it in phases, and I've talked to Josh. It's just easier to mobilize one time and do it all at one time.
Thank you. Okay, this isn't having anything to do with getting rid of the package plant for the Norton Acre storm replacement?
No, it's already done. It'll be
Okay.
done, yeah.
And so this has nothing to do with the Clark Mill Road development either?
No.
Okay. Okay. And the only other thing is I would point out for the citizens at the Cherrywood Creekside Drive Road construction is actually roads located in the Brentwood development. And that we're looking to have local matching funds to equal 50% of the total cost for each project, and 30% of the total project costs is to be generated by special assessments against the properties abounding and abutting the project.
It's standard language we use in this. I don't anticipate doing the road projects for
I
a
wasn't
second.
actually asking.
That's okay.
I was
That's
just
okay.
more for clarity.
That's okay.
The residents, I'm sorry, I should have.
And on the, just so we're clarifying, what we're saying for the water projects, typically we'll put a 30% tap in.
Mhm.
So that's what we're calling an assessment on the water projects.
Anybody else have anything to add or ask?
I'd like to ask Mr. Fowler, did I understand right, one of the items that are going to be taken care of with this application for funding is the abutment thing that I
Yes.
brought to your attention
Correct.
down in the valley there? huh?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Yep.
All right.
At this time, I motion to add Resolution 3, 2019 to council's next agenda for a first reading and with emergency language.
I'll second.
2020?
2020.
What did I say?
I'll second that. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Letter I, Section 258.04, holidays, Mr. McGlone.
Yes.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
No, you got grant applications yet.
Sorry.
That's
Till we get
okay.
off, huh?
H,
Oh,
CDBG grant applications, Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is actually to get some grant money to put in some more walkways in Columbia Woods Park. And again, is there a timeline? Do we need to get this done?
Yes, this is urgent. The deadline for this application is actually the 14th, I believe, so it's next week.
So we need to
So I'm asking to waive the,
waive second and
readings,
third
yes.
and pass it with the emergency language.
yes.
Do we have any idea what they're going to be paying for this? What possibly? Is this going to be a 50-50 or?
I think last year we asked for 85 and we got 40 and we put in 15. My
Okay.
guess is we'll probably be in the same area.
Thank you. Anybody else? No further questions. I motion to add Resolution 4, 2020 to council's next agenda for a first reading, looking to waive the second and third readings with emergency language.
I'll second.
Motion second to add CBG grant application to the next agenda. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Letter I, Section 258.04, holidays, Mr. McGlone.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all got a letter from Mr. Fowler December 31st about changing Chapter 258.04 of, I'm going to just read the proposed language. It's you'd like to change all full-time, non-bargaining employees and classified part-time employees shall receive the holiday enumerated in the ASME Local 256 collective bargaining agreement and in accordance with the terms outlined in the CBA. Classified part-time employees will receive a prorated holiday pay based on the average hours worked. Mr. Fowler, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, we just have one employee that falls under this. That's essentially a Monday through Friday person. They don't get paid holidays, but they've been here, so it's a way of rewarding that person for something that should have been enumerated a long time ago.
Okay.
It was an oversight.
Anyone have any more questions about that?
I would just like to point out for the public's information that even though Section B is in the ordinance, there is no change to that. It's only for the classified part-time worker. And there's no emergency language with this either.
No. We'll go the full 3 readings on that, Robert. Okay, with that, I'd like to put that on the next agenda, ordinance 5, 2020.
Now,
For first reading, sorry.
Second.
Motion and a second to add ordinance 5, 2020 to the next agenda for its first reading. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
I'm
Well,
sorry,
Mr.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Letter J, section 618.16, dogs in parks. And that would be Mr. Karen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question I have, I guess I was reading down this section, and what was repealed needs to be replaced, is how I'm reading this. And I'm trying to understand, the current code does not or does allow, or do we have a code in force at this time?
There is no code covering this, which is why we're asking for this language to be placed in the codified ordinances.
Okay, and so this is to allow the dogs into parks during events, and that is as determined by the Director of Public Services. If there needs to be a restriction on canines in the park at certain events. I don't know the background on this, but it seems all right to me. I can see where there'd be problems if you don't allow them at certain times, especially if it's a service dog. But
I was going to say, do we have to have some type of verbiage in there with excluding service dogs being excluded from the park?
I would think that would be against the law to try to exclude a service animal.
Right, but I mean, do we have to have that verbiage in there?
I don't think so. I mean, right now, dogs are permitted. What this is saying is during special events, the dogs could be not permitted, but what we would say is, and I understand what you're saying, I would hope that the administrative officer, service director, whoever that person may be, would not restrict service animals if there's a service animal that is accompanying somebody.
So
That's not the intent.
So I just want to be clear in my own mind. Right now, dogs are allowed in the parks anytime without restriction.
This is a situation that we ran into. During our Touch a Truck event, someone brought a dog to the event. We had our canine at the event. There was a situation that happened. Because the ordinance doesn't allow us to say no dogs during this event, it was not a service animal, it was just an animal. Our concern is we have no means by which we can tell people that dogs are not permitted during these special events. And this will give us the language to do during special events. Now, Ms. Whipke and I had the conversation on Tuesday, I believe it was Tuesday, whatever day it was. Does one consider a regular sporting activity a special event? And our conversation collectively was a regular sporting event is not considered a special event. Special event would be something that's outside the normal activity of the park.
Such as the Cider Fest.
Such as Cider Fest, such as the Touch a Truck, such as events that we have in the park
Kind of once
that
a
are
time.
the ones, yes, special events. So that's why we were very specific with the language we chose, because we didn't want to get into the minutia of this is what we're.
The only thing I would add that I think should be added to that is once there's of course there's going to be a sign, the way I read that, the way you've got it written, there's going to be a sign put up at any special event that the dogs are not allowed in. So that sign's only going to be there for the duration of the special event. I would suggest, though, that someplace along the line, even when it's not a special event, that it also be worded somewhere or another to make certain that all dogs are on a leash, period. There's nothing said there about a leash. And at any event, special or otherwise, if they're at a ball game, that person should have that dog on a leash, always on a leash. Anytime you're in public, your dog should be on a leash, unless it's a police officer's dog who has it under complete control. There should be something about a leash law added to that, whether it's in the park or any other place, they're supposed to be on a leash.
Yeah, I'll check. I imagine we have a leash law that's separate from this dogs in the park, but I'll check to make sure.
And I'm just saying, for the benefit of the sign that's going to go up for special events, you know, there should be something mentioned.
Well, what I envision is a sign will tell you during this event, no dogs. We're going to take it down and put it up for each event. It won't stay up in perpetuity. So,
Right.
Yeah, I would be interested to know if we do have a leash law. I honestly don't remember.
I was thinking that the
recall so.
last time we addressed dogs in parks, we allowed for dogs to be off leash in the event that a person is playing fetch with them. You know, letting the dog run, throwing a ball, letting them run back and forth, but I don't remember, no?
I don't
It was
remember
discussed,
doing
if I remember correctly, and I may be wrong, it was discussed mainly about leashes still being in effect, except for the police canine dogs that would perhaps be training their animals in the parks, and they would be allowed, of course, because they're under their control at all times. But
That's my recollection.
yes, and so I don't know if we have a leash law or not. I mean, it's just common sense. If you take your dog to the park, it should be on a leash, unless it's in a dog park that is fenced in and with all the other animals that are loose then. But we don't have a dog park, so in these parks like we have, I think the dog should be on a leash, because even the most small, nice dog can nip at a little child or something, and then without a leash law, we're in trouble, I think.
Yeah, 61801 has the leash law requirements for the city, so it's separate. It requires control, leashes, tethers, whatever the whole section there on that. addressing
So
that
we
issue.
are requiring a leash,
Right.
but that doesn't necessarily mean an animal's under control.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter if they're on a sidewalk or in a park, anywhere. They got to
Right.
be. They got to be.
Can't run at large.
Right. They can't run at large. Exactly.
But for training purposes, you sometimes don't use a 6-foot leash.
Yeah.
But
And
they're
if the
still
dog
under
gets
control.
loose and hurts somebody, then you violated the ordinance because you didn't have him on a leash. So that's a risk you take when you're.
And they're still responsible for their dog no matter what,
Exactly.
so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
As I understand where this came from was in a specific incident. And I think what we're looking at is putting this in place to avoid it. At that particular incident, it would have been impossible to do anything but preempt it. Where I'm headed is, would this sign then automatically come out anytime we would have a police canine or a dog in the park, or just every special event? I'm just curious to see how that would be applied, because the only way to have avoided that is to put the sign out before the incident occurred.
I think each individual activity must be taken on its merits, and one can't blanketly say that we would arbitrarily prohibit animals at any event.
But because there was a dog present,
I think at that one, for example, there's little kids, right? Do we want people to be having animals at events where there's kids, where we expect an abnormally large crowd of children? I mean, I think each individual event needs to be taken on its merits and the attendance that's expected. And at that point, we can evaluate maybe where and where the restrictions are applied.
okay, so it would be prior to the event where
Yes.
that would be determined then. Okay. I believe I understand that then. So At this time, I would like to.
Mr. Crane.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
could I
I'm
ask
sorry.
just one question? Early in the conversation, Mr. Markey, when Mr. Pilot had asked about service dogs, you had said something to the extent of you would hope that the Director of Public Service would not allow a dog.
Yeah.
Does that mean under this writing, technically the Public Service Director could
Well,
say,
we're always subject to ADA, right? So we'd have to put it in every ordinance, or we just acknowledge the fact that we're always responsible to follow the ADA when making accommodations and not restricting service dogs and things like that. So I mean, that all our laws are subject to that federal law already. I'm sorry if I was flippant about it, but we already have that requirement. So saying it's
Okay.
redundant, but I understand your concern.
yeah, I just want to make sure us as council, if years down the road, there's another Public Service Director who doesn't see the things the way we do, I just want to make sure that's what's covered.
And not to get too far down the slippery slope analogy thing, it's like saying we don't want to discriminate based on race or gender when applying this law. Yeah, I mean, there's already
Okay.
requirements that we can't discriminate, right? We have to follow ADA, things like that, so,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Is there any further discussion?
One more thing, just quickly. This all started this time about an incident, like Robert was talking about, that happened at a soccer ball game. Dog was on a leash and it still bit somebody. So somebody in the soccer league put up a sign that said no dogs allowed, period, which they were going by an old ordinance. Now the ordinance has been repealed. Now we're coming up with a new one. The way I read this new ordinance, only the service director can say no dogs allowed at this event.
Correct.
So the service director, in his wisdom, is he going to say at all soccer events or football events or whatever, he's not going to say, he's not going to put that sign up at all those events, correct?
So there's a couple points here. You all may not know that the city had erected metal signs at each entrance to the park, to the Loyal Oak Park. So the person that replicated that sign, all they did was took what was posted, unbeknownst to me, until I went and walked the park and made sure to better understand what was going on. So we had those signs. We had one sign removed. Then I found the second one. So I don't fault them for replicating the signage because we had it still posted. We immediately took it down once we found out that it was still up. So this is kind of a compromise, but again, I say a regular occurring activity is not a special event, and we chose the language specifically so that we didn't get into this, not all events. Again, not all soccer events are special events. If they have a soccer tournament or they have a soccer activity, a big soccer, a big activity that's cider bowl, things that are unique to a park, that's when we would consider, as I said, consider invoking that restriction.
So my mind is clear. Nobody, soccer, football, or any other league is going to have the authority to put up that sign again without going through the service director.
Correct, but it has to be a special event.
That's right.
And not a, yes.
Okay.
But I don't want people to think, again, we're having a game, so I need to call and see if we can get the restriction. It's a special event, not a regular event. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. I wrote this language, and I wrote it very specifically for that purpose so that we didn't get into this regular activities.
Right. I agree.
Is there any further discussion?
I got one more, I'm sorry, I don't mean to drag this on. It says, shall be posted at the entrance of the park, should that read all entrances?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with all entrances. Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, historically, I was thinking about here, to be candid. And you're correct. I think that's a very valid concern. Because at Loyal Oak, you have two entrances, so if it is Loyal Oak, we should have it posted at all entrances.
Okay. Is there anything else? Okay, hearing none, I would like to move ordinance number 6, 2020 to the next regular council agenda.
I'll second.
And there is no need for emergency language? Okay.
There's a motion and a second to add the ordinance to the next agenda for its first reading. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Letter K, Section 1040.02, Water Service Connection, under Utilities. Mr. Pelot.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is dealing with the stormwater. Actually, I'll turn it over to Mr. Fowler. And
So we should be on, let's make sure I'm on the right one. We're on water connection fees, correct?
correct.
Yes. Letter K.
We're on 40.02?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So the ordinance, as you can see, initially stated there was a 3% increase. I think the last time it was passed was 08. I'm trying to flip back to see when it was passed. I believe that was around 2008. And it had a 3% increase. I thought, rather than do an increase and try to figure out where it had been, it is currently $11.55. It has not been increased since 2008, which is 11 years. Barberton is a little bit higher than what this will be in 2023, but this is sheerly a per benefit charge. We would increase it $45.20, which would take effect when this passes, and subsequently increase over the next three additional years by $100. And it also eliminates the language, the percent increase. I took that language out, and it also just calls for a 5-year review by City Council.
Anyone have any questions on this?
I do, Mr. Pelot.
Yes.
Okay, that's a $45 increase for the year 2020, and then after that, for the next 3 years, it'll be a $100 increase per year, to where we would have a total of $1,500 for 2023, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and this is for actually to tie in to get water
Correct. Per ERU.
per E.
ERU,
it's
equivalent
benefit-
residential unit.
But it would be for benefit for residential.
Correct.
Business, it would be different.
Correct.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that's clear. So if a large
So if a business is 2 ERUs, then it's going to be 3.
20, yeah, well,
You can look at the tap size, it's above.
Right,
It's
right.
above. So if it's a
Okay.
1-inch tap, there's 2.5 benefits multiplied by the rate.
Gotcha.
And it wouldn't have to say, it would just say per benefit would still cover a business if they had 2 or 3.
correct.
Because I think that's what the ordinance itself is talking benefits and not so much ERU. The only thing other is with the 3% increase, percentage increase, and now we're going to go with the 100. Is that how they arrived at those other, I think it started out 1,000?
Yes.
And that's how they arrived at the ongoing as it went along in 07, 08, and 09.
Correct.
But with us abandoning the 3% percentage, and then we're going to just have a flat rate of 100%, that's going to be substantially more than the 3% increase would have been, if I did my math correctly.
Correct, but yes.
You
It
mean,
would-
you mean the $100, not
You
the
said
Yeah.
100%.
$100,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
what-
It's
the
not a
$100
percent.
will be a lot
We
more.
looked at trying to keep it a flat, even number,
Uh-huh.
just for simplicity's sake. Even if it's $50, if you all said, hey, we should modify that. I would just encourage it not to be a percentage, because then you get into like cents and like,
Well, I would feel much more comfortable with lowering that amount as opposed to jumping that big of amount.
Okay.
I would go along with not using the percentage, but to lower it from the 100 to, I like the 50 much better.
okay with that.
And then where does that money go specifically? Into Fund 126?
126, yep. And it should be, there's another section here. Further on down in this section, it tells you that it has to be, not in this, it's like D, I believe. Item D tells you that all those monies shall be deposited in a special fund and earmarked for wet water purposes.
It just doesn't use the name of it, I guess.
Well, it's not on the sheet I gave you. It's further down in the codified ordinance.
Well, that's why,
But we would be okay if, under your request, 1,200 this year, 1,250, 13, and 1,350 in '23. I think that'd be very
Just, there were no increases between '09 and.
correct. That's correct.
okay.
There has been no increase. That's why I said it.
Had
Said
there
it.
Really, that's
Other-
playing, we're just playing catch-up if we do the 100.
We-
That's
we
why
were.
I think we should do the 100. Because it was like adding 35 each year. You missed 10 years.
But now this is on top of, they still have to pay
Assessment.
Barberton.
Yes.
I mean, the total cost of somebody, if they paid 100% of their water, tap in, everything, I mean, you're talking like $15,000.
For the assessment for the water line and the tap into us and then a tap into Barberton. Yes.
Only on certain water lines.
I'm saying if they pay 100%, if the
But
resident.
but let's use there's a house being built currently in Mount Vernon. It's under construction currently. I think it's on Long. No, it's on.
But there's
Mount
already
Vernon.
a water line there.
Yeah.
Right, but there's no assessment for that. That's going to be whatever the council sets this fee.
Right.
And that's all the fee is. It's not 15,000. It'll be 1,200.
Right. No, I'm saying, looking at the big picture, if you had a house and you had no water line in front of your house and they put a water line, by the time you were done, I'm just saying with all the fees and everything, I mean, you're looking at a substantial chunk of change. I'm okay with the 100 where it's at, just because we haven't done anything since 2009.
But then going forward, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, after the
2020.
2023, once we kind of get caught up,
Well, yeah, that's why
then maybe it can
It'll
get
be
reduced.
reviewed again, and we won't
Right.
do 100.
I thought it was 5 years we'd be reviewing it.
I mean, I think actually on that language it should be at most. I think you should put at most, but that I didn't want to speak for council. I think you shouldn't review it any more than 5 years. I don't think there's a reason to review it more than 5 years, but I don't want to bind that. I mean, it's just
I mean, I just think because there's been no increase since '09, we really are kind of catching up with what should have happened.
I agree.
Honestly, the difference between $50 and $100 for the tap-in is not that huge. I mean, I'm fine with it at the $100.
Mr. Kern,
Any
just
other
wanted to
count-
point out that it had been 3% increase, not that it should have been 3, but had it been 3% increase, I have it about $1,550 is what it would have been in 2020
Right.
if it just would have increased 3%.
Right.
From
So it's
2000.
Across the
actually,
board.
still actually a little bit lower.
Yeah, so I think this shows a 1,200, right, increasing.
I had my calculator out trying to do it, but
Yeah.
Right. It
So-
is 1,200 for
Wasn't happening.
2020.
So it's
And
like
then-
$350 less than what it would have been had it
Yeah.
increased.
Right,
Not
and
that
then-
that's the best argument, but that's
Right.
showing what it was.
and actually, by the time this is done, it gets us to it about evens out.
Right.
So
Any other council members?
those people that tapped in between 2009 and 2019 got a deal, right?
Well, I would tend to agree with Ms. Whipke. What's wrong with giving people a deal? But I'm not strong either way.
Any others?
I don't have a problem with the $100. I don't have a problem at all.
Did you want to do anything with that then, Charlotte, or leave it the way it is?
Well, if I'm not going to get enough backing,
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just thought I'd double check.
Robert, just one more, the tap-in for Mount Vernon, now, if it was 1,500, that'd be ours. Did they pay something with Barberton too on a tap-in also?
yes.
And then whatever it costs for them to
Connect from there to the
connect from there
house.
is their,
Right.
whoever does it.
They're plumber. Yes.
Okay.
And that varies. It could be anywhere from $1,000.
But that's part of your cost of building a house.
That's
Correct.
right.
I just want to be
Or anybody wanting to
clarified
tap in.
that
Right, right.
like all these where we're putting the water lines in now, we're raising this in time to hit them.
Well, we have a water line down Greenridge, and I don't think anyone hardly tapped in.
I don't think we require, first of all, we
We
don't
don't.
require
We
anyone
don't
to
have to
tap
tap
in.
We don't require tap in, and
It's totally their choice.
Yeah, the only way they're required is if they just come along and condemn the well. Then
Or
that would
just
be
do
a
it
county
before
deal.
30 days is up here. And okay. At this time, then, I will move to add, what ordinance will this be?
Is ordinance
7.
8
Seven.
or 7? 7. I move to add ordinance 7, 2020 to council's next agenda.
And that's just for a first reading?
there is no urgency with this legislation at all.
Either
Either
Mr.
Mr.
Gaynor,
Gaynor or
Mr.
Ms.
Gaynor and Ms.
Whipke.
Whipke have to second that.
It had to be Mr. Gaynor because I'm not that happy.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
You
what-
would have to second.
Oh, second, yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Roll call, please.
Oh, 1 second. I think that should be number 6, should it not?
I have 7 written on my,
No, dogs were 6.
Dogs in the Park was 6.
Okay, I'm looking at my sheets backwards.
yeah, I think it,
I want to do that.
Yes, 6
there's
is
just
the
round.
dogs.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was looking at it wrong, thank you.
5.
yep, it's 7. All right, there's a motion and a second to add ordinance number 7, 2020 to council's next agenda for first reading. With the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor,
Yes,
Ms. Whipke,
Yes.
All right, and then we're on to letter L, section 123206 and 123207, stormwater, and that is Mr. Gaynor, I believe.
thank you, Mr. President. I'm not real clear as to what this is about. I've read it and read it and read it, and I understand the language, but I was just curious as to the thinking behind it. Why are we doing it?
So we've run into a situation where these Summit County Soil and Water Conservation people have told us building plan reviews will take up to 6 months. And that is by no means is that acceptable under any circumstance. That prohibits us from getting our goals accomplished. So in order to meet that, we have decided to strike that language. We do have opportunities where people who want to develop land in the city can pay our city engineer a fee, and they can have, our city engineer has the capacity to handle that. And the idea was to give us an additional alternative to Summit Soil Water to expedite these plans.
That's fine. I agree then. That's what I thought was in mind there, and I just wanted to make certain that I knew what you were talking about. Yeah, I think our city engineer should have always had the final say on it anyway.
And I think part of what we talked about last week, one of the reasons the previous city engineer didn't have the capacity, the county engineer pushed everything to the county, and that's why that language was so strict. And we were required to use them. So we're modifying it so we can have the opportunity to look at other agencies to conduct the review.
Okay. That's the only question I had on it, really, on that. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, are we under contract for conducting those plan reviews with the county now or with anybody other than our own?
Well,
engineer?
currently, our engineer does not do the review. It all goes to Summit Soil and Water. We're trying to evaluate where that contract is, those kind of things, because of the situation we ran into. We were told it would be 6 months before a review could be completed. And just so we understand what that means, construction could not begin until that review was complete. So if you wanted to build a new building, like on Worcester Road or on Portage Street, you would have to wait 6 months to get approval from the county to start. And that's just not acceptable with some of the time frame we're put under. So that's why I have to look at an alternative source.
Is that the same with the allotment on Clark Mill?
No, it took 90 days, I think, or 100, and they are busier now than they have been, so they're short-staffed.
Okay.
So just to make clear, Summit County is still an option if a builder does not want to pay that extra fee.
Correct.
It's just if they want to move things along and want to pay the fee, then they can go through.
It's an option. They have an option to pay,
Okay. Or wait.
Say it this way.
They can pay
Kind
or
of like
wait.
the fast pass at Cedar Point. You want to skip the line.
Want to expedite it.
You can pay a little additional fee to have it done.
Roughly ballparkish of what kind of fee?
It's per hour. It's per hour, so whatever the review takes per hour, we just charge them the hourly rate the consultant charges us.
So
Okay.
will we be the one looking at getting this person to do the plan reviews or company, or will it be the developer themselves?
So what happens now is the developer comes in, they make a deposit. Ron can confirm this. Let's, for example, there's a company that's building a building. They place a $2,000 deposit with the city. That's a site review fee. Now, what happens is we charge an hourly rate based on the amount of time that the person reviews it, and each person has a different hourly rate. So it's not just an engineer. It's an engineer. It's a stormwater expert. It's somebody else. Each person has a specific rate tied to their wage, and that amount comes off. They send Ron an itemized bill saying Joe Smith makes $30 an hour plus benefits and per hour, and he worked 3 hours on this project, and then we deduct it from the deposit. And then if we run out of deposit, we call back the peer person and say, hey, we've used all your deposit. You need to make another deposit. So really what Ron does now, we started issuing POs for every review so that we can keep track and then subsequently invoice the people once we are out of money. So.
And the only other question I have, does this, will this ever come back before council to approve this, or this is all done before it goes through the zoning and the planning, and it never comes back to us then to approve?
Yeah, I think this is just part of the site plan review, which those don't come back to council or anyone. It's just part of the review that when it's like building a house, you got to have everything reviewed.
Okay.
So it wouldn't come back.
I was thinking that we had passed the stormwater phase 2, but I thought that had to be reviewed or something. Maybe something that you want to check into. Stormwater phase 2.
Yeah, the MPDES permit, Robert.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's under
Right,
debate.
that's under review. That's different than,
Right, but I just figured while we were discussing stormwater, I figured I'd throw it out there.
We've had this conversation with the EPA because we're trying to determine the definition of a map.
Is there anybody else has anything on that? Questions, anything?
No.
I'd like also bring up the fact that I believe the word by is missing in 2 paragraphs there. It might be, we make a motion to move it to the next agenda. You see where I'm talking about, Justin? It says reviewed by the city engineer, correct?
Yep.
And down at the bottom on section 2, it says reviewed by the city engineer again. Should be added, but I would make a motion to move it to the council's next agenda if there's no other questions or comments.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to add ordinance 8, 2020 to the next agenda for first reading. First reading only, okay on that, or do we want to first reading?
Well, we may ask you to waive that.
Waive second and third?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Only because I have a couple projects that are coming. Actually, quite a few projects that are coming forward that this could be pertinent.
And that was seconded. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
All right. And section 1472.09, riparian setbacks. Mr. Gaynor?
Yes. Wonderful. This also is a little unclear to me exactly what the purpose is. I know I've read the sections, and the way it is today, I'm not sure. I looked and I couldn't find an actual riparian setback maps of any place in the city. I do know how they're determined by the amount of acreage drained and such. So I would assume that when somebody wants to build something, as came up recently, and it was an encroachment on a riparian setback, they had to go through a process to get that approved. There's been a couple of times, matter of fact, in the last year that's came up. It didn't come up, I don't believe, because of the 100-foot floodplain, 100-year floodplain area. I see where it could. The way it states now, though, is that the riparian, and I can't say the word right, setback can be moved back to the 100-year floodplain outer edges. And we're wanting to say, are we wanting to say that it cannot or must not be moved to the 100-year floodplain edge, or what are we asking exactly?
So I'm going to give you a couple examples of property. So here's the situation. Because this language was written the way it was, right now you have a couple properties in the city that are not developable. And my concern administratively is if, as a property owner, a city ordinance prohibits me from developing it because it's in the 100-year floodplain, even though I can make engineering adjustments that take it out of the floodplain, it begs the question of whether or not that's a government taking. So the idea is this was an overly broad statute. What we're saying is you shouldn't build in a riparian anyway. We do have riparian maps in the engineer's office and in the zoning inspector. What this language allows, though, is like in Barber Road, the whole area of Barber Road cannot be developed because it's in the 100-year floodplain. And it might not be, it might be 200 feet from the riparian, but because the language is the way it is, it can't. Let me give you Condor Welding, perfect example.
Right.
They technically can't build right now because it's in the floodplain and it's in the riparian because of the floodplain's adjacent. So what we're asking is to just say, if it's in the 100-year floodplain and riparian, you can't build. You still, it still follows that case law or the codified. However, places like Condor Welding, Diesel Max across the street there, right at the corner, those folks can build their buildings without, because they're in the floodplain, but they have to. And the engineer, I think I copied the city engineer. He wrote this email to me saying the city still has restrictions of what can be built in the floodplain, and they'll have to be lifted up and meet those standards. And it won't affect the flooding. It's only taking that language, the redundancy of making riparian and flood to be as wide as the 100-year floodplain.
I understand that. That pretty much covers what I was curious about, except I also know from personal experience that if you want to build in the 100-year floodplain, I want to see does this affect the insurance rates? Like now, if I want to build in a 100-year floodplain area, my insurance is astronomical. By us changing this, will it help them to avoid that high insurance rate? Just like, for an example, the one structure you were speaking of, they're going to raise it up some. If they were to raise that, is it going to be taken into consideration that to avoid the 100-year floodplain because they did raise it? I would do whatever's necessary. I'd be in favor of whatever's necessary to aid the businesses, especially, or individuals, to build in a 100-year floodplain if they made corrections that would lower their insurance rates and would still yet pretty much guarantee they would not be flooded, therefore would lower their insurance rates. I just wondered if this might help if we pass this. I can think of 4 or 5 instances right offhand that, like you said, would prohibit building or at least slow it down quite a bit. So I don't want to do anything that will stop businesses from building if they're willing to build, and with the understanding, if they know up front, and I'm assuming as business people they do, that by building in the floodplain they're going to be paying more insurance if they don't do something to alleviate the flooding.
Well, even Josh says there are restrictions. We have to build up in the floodplain. You have to elevate your building, so it'll alleviate most of that. And just a restriction, the way the wording was, it just prohibited people from building, and you know, Barber Road right now is very exciting what's happening down there. So we have probably 4 to 5 new buildings going up on Barber.
This
We have one
probably-
going now.
Sorry.
And one of them involved a riparian setback of just a few feet.
Yeah.
Which could have caused a problem.
Right. If we don't get a variance, right? If we can't get a variance through our boarding,
Right,
or
that's
zoning
what I'm saying.
appeals, it presents a problem. And so we felt that this was language that administratively we could propose and be friendly to, you know, potential developers.
I would like to have, if possible, if we have a list of, because there's so many creeks involved, and I'm involved in this Wolf Creek water thing. There's so many creeks involved, and I know that they're, like I said, they're determined by the acreage that they drain as to the setback for the riparian setback. I'd like to have a copy of anything we have that would show those riparian setbacks in our city limits.
I will get all of council. It might take a little bit,
Yeah.
but I'll get Josh to make. We talked today. He's going to make a new map, a new zoning map, and he's going to overlay the riparians that we have,
And it'll show us.
and it'll show them.
And it'll show the 100-year floodplain also on it,
I will ask that
if you
question.
could, because then we could compare, you know, where they stop and.
Yep. I will work on that for council. I think everybody should have one of those.
I have a question just for my, to let me picture this. Okay, the riparian setback from the outer edge of the 100-year floodplain. Okay, let's say the outer edge was on the other side of the basketball court. Does that mean the riparian would stretch that far? Or, and then the inner edge would be like at the beginning of the parking lot? Or is the inner edge, in my mind, actually the outer edge in this language? Does that make sense?
Okay. So as it's written currently.
Yes.
As it's written currently, if the stream, let's use here City Hall. You can think about the park, right? So there's a drainage that, and say the riparian is 50 feet, and we're in the floodplain, but it goes clear over to Columbia Woods Drive. If the riparian ended here, but because it's a 100-year flood, it would extend all the way over. The riparian then would extend all the way to the end of the 100-year floodplain.
To the end of it.
Yeah, so we'd go clear over to Columbia Woods Drive. So it would encompass this whole area, while, you know, from here to Columbia Woods Drive, you could build anything, but because the way our ordinance is written, it's very restrictive, and I think it was just an oversight in talking to Josh. It doesn't need to be that restrictive, because there are building restrictions that prohibit building in a floodplain. They're going to have to build it up anyway. So as long as it's not in a riparian setback, we should be fine with the construction.
Where does the floodplain actually start if it ends over in the parking lot?
There's geographical
Yeah.
maps that shows
Right.
your floodplains, national geographic maps that
Yeah,
will
I've
show.
got some of the floodplain maps, but I'm just wondering where the riparian is. It runs up to the edge of that as it is now.
No, each riparian will be separate.
Always.
Each riparian will be separately delineated, much like the 100-year floodplain. They are two separate, different
Okay.
geographical categories, is one way to put it. Like, a way to explain it is sometimes it's 50 foot from depending on the stream. I think Mr. Gaynor articulated it best when he said depends on the amount of drainage and all those things. It could be 50 feet, could be 75, depending on the amount of flow. But what our ordinances say, just like Barber Road, technically, all of Barber Road is not able to be developed because, without some stipulations, because of it, they extend the riparian to the 100-year flood, which is clear across Barber Road, and you know that the stream's clear over behind New Park.
Right, so there's really nothing in between the riparian and the floodplain. We're just going to the inner edge,
Yes.
I would think of it as
Yes.
the floodplain. Now-
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. But you know, Barberton still says that. Is that going to have any effect on our things? Barberton, I think, still says, is following our current language. So that's something to be considered, too. when we run into
Shouldn't
that.
matter to us, actually, what Barberton says, as long as we enforce it in the city limits of Norton. It have no effect on us whatsoever. I'd like to make a motion to send this also to the next agenda unless there's objections by anybody.
I'll second that.
And is that for first reading? You need to.
I would, if there's any concerns, I'm okay discussing it, but I would like it to move as
So we
quickly
have-
as
I would
possible.
suggest that it be waived.
So we have a motion and second to add ordinance 9, is it?
Yes.
2020 to council's next agenda for first reading. And then we're looking, unless there's concerns, to waiving second and third. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
All right. Unfinished business. I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. We've got a couple things that we were talking about last year that we were busy with, other things that got kind of put on hold. Are we looking at doing something about a noise ordinance? Because spring will be upon us before we know it.
We have been discussing it.
Okay.
It's not without discussion. I think even between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we had the discussion.
Okay.
And
Is this about Barberton Speedway?
It's about any noise in the city.
Well, and I talked to you, I know Barberton Speedway is up for sale. There might be new owners, so I'd like to, we have
Right.
new owners, I'd like
We-
to talk to them to get them straightened out.
it's why we have been discussing
Okay.
this specific issue
All right.
to try to come up with some reasonable standards. But
So
again, we
it's-
don't want to be overreaching, so it's the balance test we're
And
trying to.
and I also want to make clear that this isn't just about Barberton Speedway.
It isn't.
There's-
You're right.
There's other things in the city that we can, apply a noise ordinance to.
Correct.
No, but it isn't, but if we get new owners, maybe we can talk to them better than the last owners.
Have we reached out to other communities that are in similar situations as to what ordinances they have in place to diminish the noise?
We have not done anything in terms of
Might be worthwhile. I mean,
specifics, specific circumstances.
I just really wanted, in unfinished business, to indicate that this is something that we need to be looking at, and as long as you're
I
looking
promise
at it,
council, I promise you that we have
Okay.
had many, many more discussions than would all we'd like.
And then,
But
the other thing that we had talked about is that we wanted to start looking at the property maintenance code. And that's something really that we would like to work on. I know a couple council members have indicated that to me. We need to start working on that this year. We've got a lot of irons in the fire, I know. It's busy for us in the city because good things are happening, but we need to take care of these other things too. So I'm just throwing it out there.
have we filed suit against the county on Congo Road?
No, but we're having discussions.
I think we need to move
very
forward.
productive conversations have been had.
I mean,
There have been a lot of good conversations.
all right. I just thought, 9 months.
We're making progress.
Mr.
right.
President,
Yes, sir.
I noticed you skipped the Wolf Creek watershed.
Well, I hadn't quite gotten there yet.
Oh, okay.
We're still under unfinished
Number two
business.
instead of number one there.
Right.
I want to make sure we didn't forget this.
And that-
Still under unfinished, though.
And that's actually under topics for the next work session.
Exactly.
So- But we're still under unfinished business, so.
Mr. President, I do
Yes,
have something.
Talking about the property maintenance code, and I thought maybe you'd just,
I'm just kind of throwing it out there
Okay.
for
okay.
trying to get the
When you
gear.
get to it,
Trying to get the gears kind of grinding there on particular things. Mr. Tousley?
Thank you. I've just got a request for the administration. My wife tried to switch on NOPEC to the lower rate that the woman had brought to us, the rep had brought to us.
I'm sorry, Paul, I couldn't hear you. Could you?
My wife had tried to switch our gas to the lower NOPEC price. I think it was just today. And the issue they had, and the lady did admit she was a little new, but she had gotten on Norton's website, which I'm on now just to verify, and the website still has Constellation as our provider. So my request is if we could get that changed to help them, to help residents, everybody all together. So I still haven't gotten changed, and hopefully that'll happen soon. But
And on that same thing, if I may, I was talking with an individual from NOPEC, and if a buyer has already committed someplace else, they get removed from the mailing list. And for somebody to be able to drop a supplier and go back or go to NOPEC, I think we may have to pass something, an ordinance here within the city. I'm trying to get some more information on it, but there are certain circumstances where you can't just go and switch. They can't send letters out to those individuals, so everybody may not have received a letter. I think they still have the right, but they might actually have to jump through a few hoops to do it unless we pass an ordinance saying that they have that right to be able to do that. Hopefully here in the next week or so, I'll have some information. I'll shoot it off to you, Robert, and go from there.
I have a separate supplier other than NOPEC, and I received a letter to either opt out or stay in, and I chose to opt out. So I stayed with my old supplier, and so I don't know. I would think anybody who everybody should have got the letter if I don't know, that's confusing.
I was with the supplier and I didn't get a letter,
to my knowledge, I didn't.
so
So you didn't get an opportunity to opt out
I didn't.
from NOPEC? You didn't get an opportunity to opt out, even though they sent out 2 letters?
Yeah, I don't believe we got either of the letters.
You don't believe or you didn't?
I don't get the mail. People who got the mail said they never got the letter.
Everybody I've asked,
Same-
other than
same way at
here,
my house, Paul.
has received the letter and it's
Opt in or opt out.
I know that there are circumstances based off this conversation. This individual's pretty high up within the company, so I believe what they were saying is correct. And once I get that information, then I'll bring it forward and we can address it more, but there may be some that may not have received letters, so just something to be aware of for now.
Anything else under unfinished business? Any new business? Topics for the next work session. I apologize, Mr. Gaynor. I see the property maintenance code was down there under B, and that's probably what confused you, so I apologize for that. But letter A, Wolf Creek Watershed Conservancy District, we'll be talking about that next work session.
It's all right, I'm easily confused.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just a general question, and I sort of addressed this with Carrie over the weekend, but there's some things on the website for the city that I think may be a little bit outdated, but they may also have good purpose for being there. So just for my general information, one of the things is the Health Advisory Board is still listed, but it was abolished years ago. Is it necessary that we keep that on there to show that it was abolished, or is that something that could just go away? There's some just enhancements, I think. There's some things that I think we could do with our website that might be better. Is there a reason that has to be kept on there? Because we did have a health advisory board back then.
My guess is it's like maybe every organization where things become outdated and it's just not updated quickly. It's an ongoing project generally, and so maybe we should look into having somebody just take a look at it and see what we can take out of there and add on.
Okay.
So.
I'd like to, before you get too far ahead here, I just want to go back to this Wolf Creek watershed. I know we're going to talk about it next week. I would suggest that all the council members, since you did receive a copy of the minutes from the meeting that I had, I would suggest, if possible, that you sit down. It might take a while and read them and see what the public had to say about the Wolf Creek watershed idea. And the public meaning the 30 people or so that showed up for the meeting, that was interested in it enough to show up for the meeting, and they weren't people they were good citizens in the community, and I value their opinion. And there was a lot of good things said about the idea for the Wolf Creek watershed and I think we should proceed with it, and everybody should read those copies of those minutes that Charlotte was gracious enough to take care of.
Could you send those to us before the work session?
She did.
I know, but I don't, when?
Just
Huh?
last
I
week, I
sent
think.
Was it last week?
Yeah,
Okay.
Just recently.
Everybody
Okay,
got them,
all
yeah.
right.
You should have a copy of them
Okay.
electronically.
All right.
I thought maybe, I didn't know if Carrie, if you gave them a paper copy or not. I would suggest that it be a paper copy so they can sit
Oh,
down.
wait a minute, I think I did,
I
but I
think-
can do it again.
I think you may have.
I
Yeah.
got a copy, I know,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I
paper
did.
copy, and I would suggest if the mayor and Mr. Fowler and Justin and all of them didn't get a copy, it's not that difficult to read, it takes a while, but you would be surprised at the opinions the public has on the subject. And everyone I've spoke to, almost everyone, thinks that it should, something we should pursue. So I would appreciate it, since I'm involved in it, if everybody would read it and make some idea, make sure they understand what's going on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any communications from the public? Did anybody sign up? All right.
I just have one thing I'd like to say
Mayor.
there. First of all, I just want to thank everybody who took time out and came and participated in the Christmas Tree in the Parks program. I want to thank the Women's Club for all they've done with that and with helping to make the Christmas program successful. I just would like to say, though, that we did the memory tree, and a lot of ornaments were put on the memory tree. The tree itself has been, it's a planted tree, but everything has been removed from it. And I know that ornaments have already been reclaimed by the owners. However, any existing ornaments that were left on the tree as of yesterday were taken down and brought here to City Hall. So if anybody would still like to claim an ornament that they put on the tree that have not yet done so, we have them here at City Hall. They're welcome to come up and claim them. If not, we'll keep them. Is my plan to keep them till next year and then put them back on the tree. So I want to put that out there, though. I didn't want people thinking that they just disappeared. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
I don't see it.
Any other business to come before council? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So motion.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
You know what date was it? If you look 12/7. Oh, 12/7. You guys said last week.
I was thinking it was last week.
Yeah, come on, man. Well, you said 12/7.
Because it was the 26th.
I'm over here looking at, yeah, I mean, come on, man, 12/7.
Charlotte
That was a
transcribed
month
it.
ago.
Charlotte
He said
transcribed